I'm Lucy Roberts, and let me tell you something about being a chef in New Orleans. The pressure will either make you a legend or drive you completely insane. Right now, at 32, I'm teetering somewhere between both. The morning sun streamed through the grimy windows of Magnolia's kitchen as I stirred my grandmother's gumbo recipe for the 100th time this week. My hands shook slightly, not from nerves but from exhaustion. 3 hours of sleep and endless criticism from my restaurant owner will do that to you. Lucy, we need to talk. Marcus, the owner, appeared beside my station wearing his usual scowl. The reviews have been brutal. Food critics are calling us outdated. Give me more time, I muttered, tasting the roux. Perfect, nutty brown, just like Grand-mère taught me. Time's up. Fix this or find another kitchen. The lunch rush hit like a hurricane. Orders flew in faster than I could plate them, but my mind stayed focused on that damn gumbo. Every bowl had to be perfect. My reputation depended on it. Just before 2 o'clock, she walked in. Nicole Clark stood at table 12 with her notebook and camera, blonde hair catching the afternoon light filtering through our stained glass windows. Blue eyes scanned the menu with professional intensity. A food blogger. Probably another critic ready to tear us apart. I watched from the kitchen as she ordered my signature dish. My heart hammered against my ribs. This woman could destroy everything I'd worked for with a few harsh words online. 20 minutes later, I couldn't take it anymore. Wiping my hands on my apron, I walked directly to her table. "How's the gumbo?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, and those blue eyes hit me like a freight train. "You're the chef?" "Lucy Roberts." "Nicole Clark." She gestured to the empty bowl. "This is extraordinary. The way you've incorporated those local Gulf shrimp. It's like tasting the ocean itself." Heat flushed my cheeks. "You really think so?" "I think you're a damn artist." Before I could stop myself, I leaned closer. "Would you like to see how I make it?" "I'd love that." In the kitchen, I guided her through my process, our bodies moving in sync around the cramped space. When she reached for the same spoon I was holding, our fingers brushed. Electric, that's the only word for it. "The secret," I whispered, "is patience." "I'm not very good at patience," she replied, her voice softer now. We stood there, faces inches apart, the heat from the stove nothing compared to what sparked between us. The kitchen noise faded away until it was just her breathing and mine. "I should go," she said, but didn't move. "Should you?" Instead of leaving, Nicole stepped closer. Her hand found my cheek, thumb tracing along my jawline. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Yeah." Then her lips met mine, soft and urgent. I kissed her back, tasting cinnamon and possibility. When we broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. "I need to write my review," she said, backing away slowly. "Will I see you again?" She smiled, that beautiful, devastating smile. "Count on it." After she left, I stood in my kitchen, touching my lips where hers had been. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Whatever Nicole wrote about Magnolia's kitchen, something told me my life had just taken an unexpected turn. That night, her review went live. 5 stars. She called my gumbo a masterpiece of flavor and me a chef worth watching. But it was the final line that made my hands tremble as I read it. Some experiences change you. This meal, this chef, this moment, all of it was perfect. The Gulf Coast sunrise painted the sky coral pink as volunteers gathered at Grand Isle Beach. Nicole's 5-star review had brought unexpected customers to my restaurant, but more importantly, it brought me here, to this cleanup event where I hope to see her again. I spotted her immediately, kneeling in the sand with latex gloves, sorting oil-stained plastic bottles into recycling bags. That blonde hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she wore a faded environmental group t-shirt that hugged her curves in all the right places. "Fancy meeting you here," I said, dropping my cleanup supplies beside hers. She looked up, those blue eyes sparkling with surprise and something else. "Lucy, I didn't expect to see you. Your review mentioned sustainable seafood practices. Figured you might be the environmental type." Guilty as charged. She stood, brushing sand from her knees. "Plus, I needed some fresh air after my latest disaster." "Disaster?" My girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, decided she preferred men after all. Nicole's laugh had a bitter edge. 3 years down the drain. We worked side by side, filling bag after bag with debris. The morning heat grew intense, but I found myself stealing glances at the way Nicole moved, purposeful and graceful, even doing something as mundane as picking up trash. You know what I dream about? I said, holding up a plastic fork. A restaurant that sources everything locally. No shipping containers full of ingredients from halfway around the world. That's beautiful, Nicole said. Most chefs just care about profit margins. Not me. I want to feed people food that honors the land, the water. I gestured toward the Gulf. This coastline gives us everything we need if we're smart about it. She stopped working and stared at me. You're serious. Dead serious. My grandmother taught me that cooking is about connection, to the ingredients, to the place, to the people you're feeding. Tell me about her. As we continued cleaning, I shared stories of Grandma's kitchen, how she'd take me fishing at dawn and teach me to identify the freshest catch. Nicole listened intently, occasionally asking questions that showed she really understood what I was trying to say. I've been covering environmental stories for 5 years, she said, and you're the first chef who gets it. The sun began setting as other volunteers headed home. We sat on a piece of driftwood, watching orange light dance across the waves. This is nice, Nicole said, her shoulder brushing against mine. Peaceful. Yeah. I turned to face her. Can I ask you something? Earlier, when you kissed me in the kitchen, I'm sorry if that was too forward. It wasn't. I reached for her hand. I haven't felt like that in a long time. She squeezed my fingers. Me neither. The confession hung between us like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Nicole's thumb traced circles on my palm, sending shivers up my arm despite the warm evening. I should probably mention, she said quietly, I've never been with a chef before. I've never been with a food critic either. We both laughed, the tension easing slightly. Behind us, someone had lit a small campfire that other stragglers were gathering around. Guitar music drifted over on the salt breeze. Want to stay for a while? Nicole asked. We joined the group, sharing stories about the day's cleanup efforts. Nicole impressed everyone with her knowledge of marine ecosystems, while I contributed observations about how pollution affects local fishing communities. As the fire died down and people began leaving, Nicole and I found ourselves alone again. I keep thinking about yesterday, she admitted. Good thoughts or bad thoughts? Dangerous thoughts. The way she said it made my pulse quicken. We stood simultaneously, as if drawn by the same magnetic force. Nicole? This time when she kissed me, it was slower, deeper. Her hands tangled in my hair while mine settled on her waist. I could taste salt air on her lips, feel the warmth of her body against mine under the starlight. When we broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. I should probably drive you back, she whispered. Probably. But neither of us moved. We stood there on that empty beach, holding each other while waves whispered against the shore, both knowing everything had just changed between us. Nicole's review transformed everything overnight. Reservation calls flooded in, food magazines requested interviews, and suddenly Magnolia's kitchen was the hottest spot in the French Quarter. But fame comes with a price. And mine arrived wearing expensive suits and carrying briefcases. Ms. Roberts? The man at table 6 didn't look like our usual customers. Corporate type, silver hair, calculating eyes. I'm Dr. Harrison from Meridian Research Solutions. I wiped my hands on my apron, suspicious. Can I help you? We'd like to discuss a business opportunity, something that could revolutionize your career. Marcus practically pushed me toward their table. 3 executives sat there like vultures eyeing fresh roadkill, their smiles too perfect, too practiced. We specialize in culinary innovation, Dr. Harrison explained. Specifically, enhancing natural flavors through cutting-edge food science. What kind of science? I asked. Proprietary compounds that amplify taste experiences. Imagine your gumbo tasting twice as rich, your customers unable to forget a single bite. The woman beside him, Dr. Chen, slid a contract across the table. 6 months of testing, $50,000 compensation. All you'd need to do is incorporate our flavor enhancers into select dishes. My hands trembled as I read the numbers. $50,000 would save the restaurant, pay off my debts, give me the freedom to pursue my sustainable cooking dreams. What's the catch? I asked. No catch. Just regular progress reports on customer reactions, sales figures, standard market research. Something felt wrong, but that number kept swimming in my vision. $50,000. I need time to think. Of course. But don't wait too long. This offer expires tomorrow. That evening, Nicole arrived for our dinner date wearing a blue sundress that made her eyes look like ocean water. I'd been looking forward to this all week, but now the contract weighed heavy in my pocket. You look stressed, she said, settling into the booth I'd reserved for us. Long day, work stuff. I'd prepared her favorite, my experimental Gulf Coast fusion menu, but couldn't focus on her reactions to each dish. My mind kept circling back to Dr. Harrison's offer. Lucy, what's wrong? Nicole reached across the table, fingers intertwining with mine. Someone offered me money today. A lot of money. That's good, right? I pulled out the contract. These people want to pay me to test their flavor enhancers. $50,000 for 6 months. Nicole's expression shifted as she read. Meridian Research Solutions? I've never heard of them. Neither had I until today. Lucy, this sounds sketchy. Why would a research company pay a chef that much for simple testing? Maybe they really believe in their products. Or maybe they're hiding something. Nicole's journalist instincts were kicking in. Let me research them tonight. We finished dinner, but the contract had poisoned the atmosphere. Walking her to her car, I felt the distance growing between us. Don't sign anything yet, she said, kissing my cheek. Promise me. I promise. But that night, lying awake in my tiny apartment above the restaurant, all I could think about was that money. $50,000 would change everything. The next morning, Nicole called before I'd even had my coffee. Lucy, we need to talk. I spent all night researching Meridian Research Solutions. And? They're a shell company. Their parent corporation has connections to pharmaceutical testing, military contracts. This isn't about flavor enhancers. This is something much bigger. My heart sank. What kind of bigger? I found buried reports about previous studies. Behavioral modification research, cognitive enhancement experiments. Lucy, I think they want to use you as a test subject. That's crazy. Is it? Think about it. They specifically chose you after your restaurant got famous. They need someone with regular customer interaction, someone who can report on behavioral changes. I set down my coffee cup with shaking hands. You're saying they want to drug people? I'm saying we don't know what they want, and that's exactly the problem. Through my apartment window, I could see Marcus pacing in the restaurant below. We'd had another terrible week before Nicole's review. Without this money, we might not survive another month. Nicole, I appreciate the research, but you're going to sign anyway. The disappointment in her voice cut deep. I don't have a choice. Without this money, I lose everything. You have me. 3 small words, but they hit like a sledgehammer. She'd said it so simply, so honestly, that for a moment I forgot about money and contracts and everything else. Nicole, just think about it, okay? We can find another way. After she hung up, I sat in the morning light, torn between salvation and suspicion. The contract lay on my kitchen table like a snake coiled to strike. By noon, I'd made my decision. Marcus was breathing down my neck, threatening eviction notices and bankruptcy. Nicole's concerns felt abstract compared to very real bills. I signed the contract and handed it to Dr. Harrison's assistant. My phone buzzed immediately. Nicole, please tell me you didn't. I couldn't bring myself to answer. The flavor enhancers arrived the next morning in sterile glass vials, each labeled with clinical precision. Dr. Chen's instructions were simple. Add 3 drops to my signature gumbo, 2 drops to the jambalaya, 1 drop to the bread pudding. Document everything. For the first week, nothing seemed different. Customers raved about the food more than usual, sure, but I attributed that to Nicole's review still drawing crowds. The $50,000 cleared my debts and gave me breathing room I hadn't felt in months. Nicole, however, was giving me plenty of space, the cold kind. She finally agreed to dinner at my apartment on a Friday night. I'd spent hours preparing her favorite dishes, hoping to bridge the gap my decision had created between us. This smells incredible, she said, settling onto my couch with a glass of wine. But her smile seemed forced, careful. Just some experimental dishes. Nothing fancy. We ate mostly in silence, the television providing background noise neither of us was really watching. Every time I caught her eye, I saw concern mixed with something that looked like fear. Lucy, have you noticed anything strange lately? She asked, setting down her fork. Strange? How? With yourself. Memory lapses, mood changes, anything unusual. I laughed, but it came out hollow. You mean besides my girlfriend treating me like I'm contaminated? I'm not, Nicole sighed. I'm worried about you. Because I made a business decision you don't agree with? Because last Tuesday you called me Jennifer 3 times. That's my ex's name, Lucy. The wine glass slipped from my fingers, red liquid spreading across my coffee table. I didn't remember calling her Jennifer. I didn't remember Tuesday much at all, actually. That's not, I started, then stopped. When had Tuesday been? Yesterday? Last week? Nicole moved closer on the couch, her hand finding mine. Talk to me, please. I feel fuzzy sometimes, like I'm watching myself from outside my body. How often? More lately. But I've been working long hours, the stress of the new contract. Lucy. Nicole's voice was gentle but firm. I think those enhancers are affecting you. Before I could respond, she kissed me. Soft at first, then more insistent, as if she was trying to anchor me to the present moment. I kissed her back desperately, my hands tangling in her blonde hair. I've missed this, I whispered against her lips. I've missed you. We moved to my bedroom without discussing it, our bodies speaking a language that needed no translation. Nicole's hands traced patterns across my skin, while I explored the curve of her neck, the softness of her shoulder. When she looked into my eyes, I saw fear and love warring in those blue depths. Are you sure? She whispered. I'm sure about you. We made love slowly, carefully, as if we both understood this might be the last time things felt normal between us. Her touch grounded me in ways I couldn't explain, making the fog in my head recede. For those precious hours, I felt like myself again. Afterward, lying in the dark with Nicole's head on my chest, I tried to hold on to the clarity. I think you're right, I admitted. Something's wrong with me. We'll figure it out together. But even as she said it, I could feel the haziness creeping back in. Numbers and faces started blurring together in my mind. How many vials had I used this week? Which dishes had gotten the enhancers? The next morning, Nicole was gone when I woke up. A note on my nightstand read, "Gone to research. Stay safe. Love you." Love you. The words should have filled me with warmth, but instead they felt like a goodbye. At the restaurant, Dr. Chen appeared for her weekly check-in, clipboard in hand and that practiced smile plastered across her face. How are you feeling, Lucy? Fine. The lie came automatically. Any side effects? Headaches? Confusion? Memory issues? I almost told her the truth, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she was watching me, like a scientist observing a lab rat. Nothing unusual. Excellent. Customer reactions continue to be overwhelmingly positive. We're very pleased with your progress. After she left, I stood in my kitchen staring at the remaining vials. 5 months left on the contract. 5 months of whatever this was they were doing to me. My phone buzzed with a text from Nicole. Found something. Meet me tonight. But by evening, I couldn't remember what she'd wanted to discuss. When she arrived at my apartment, frantic and carrying a folder full of papers, I felt like I was looking at her through thick glass. Lucy, I know what Meridian is really doing, she said, spreading documents across my table. The words on the pages swam before my eyes. Something about behavioral modification, government contracts, human testing protocols. These enhancers aren't just affecting taste, Nicole continued. They're designed to alter brain chemistry, make people more compliant, easier to influence. That's crazy, I said, but my voice sounded far away, even to me. Nicole gripped my shoulders. Lucy, look at me. Really look at me. I tried, but her face kept shifting in and out of focus. I can't quit the program, the contract. Forget the damn contract. I can't. And that's when we both realized the truth. I literally couldn't quit anymore, even if I wanted to. Nicole spent 3 sleepless nights piecing together Meridian's web of deception, shell companies, government contracts, buried research papers, each discovery more horrifying than the last. They weren't just testing flavor enhancers, they were perfecting mind control. Armed with hidden cameras and press credentials, she waited until midnight to approach the research facility on the outskirts of New Orleans. The building looked innocuous enough, gleaming glass and steel disguised as a legitimate pharmaceutical company. But Nicole knew better. The security guard barely glanced at her fake ID. Doing a piece on innovative food science, she explained, adjusting the tiny camera in her pendant. Dr. Harrison approved the late-night tour. Inside, she followed dimly lit corridors lined with laboratories. Through one window, she saw rows of test subjects, not lab rats, but people sitting in chairs with electrodes attached to their heads, staring blankly at screens. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't food research. This was human experimentation on a massive scale. Fascinating, isn't it? Dr. Harrison appeared behind her like a ghost. We're revolutionizing human behavior through targeted neurochemical adjustment. Nicole's hand moved instinctively toward her camera, still recording. How many subjects? 200 active participants across 12 cities. Restaurant workers make excellent test cases. They interact with hundreds of people daily, allowing us to study secondary transmission effects. Secondary transmission? The compounds don't just affect the person consuming them directly. They create behavioral changes in anyone exposed to the subjects for extended periods. Nicole's stomach dropped. If Lucy had been drugged for weeks and they'd been intimate, sleeping together, sharing meals. I need to go, she said, backing toward the exit. I don't think so. Meanwhile, across town, I was having my own crisis. The morning shift at Magnolia's had been a disaster. I'd confused orders, burned 3 pans of roux, and couldn't remember the name of my sous chef who'd worked for me for 2 years. Lucy, you need to see a doctor, Marcus said, cornering me in the storage room. Customers are complaining you seem drugged. I'm fine. You're not fine. Yesterday you served jambalaya to a customer with a shellfish allergy. She could have died. The words hit me like ice water. I'd almost killed someone and couldn't even remember doing it. That evening, I sat in my apartment staring at the vials of enhancers, trying to force my foggy brain to think clearly. Nicole hadn't answered my calls all day, which scared me more than my memory problems. My phone finally rang at 11 p.m. Lucy? Nicole's voice was shaky, terrified. I need you to listen very carefully. Where have you been? I've been worried. They found me at their facility. I'm okay, but barely. Lucy, you have to get out of that contract immediately. I can't. I told you, something won't let me. It's the drugs. They're designed to create psychological dependence, make you incapable of stopping even when you want to. I pressed my palm against my forehead, trying to clear the constant haze. What am I supposed to do? Meet me at your apartment in an hour. We're going to flush those chemicals out of your system, and then we're going to destroy these bastards. When Nicole arrived, she looked like she'd been through hell. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair messy, and there were dark circles under those beautiful blue eyes. They held me for 6 hours, she said, collapsing onto my couch. Questioned me about what I knew, threatened me with legal action. Nicole, I'm sorry. This is all my fault. No, it's not. She pulled me down beside her. You were desperate. They preyed on that. I leaned into her warmth, feeling more human than I had in weeks. I'm scared. I can barely think straight anymore. Look at me. Nicole cupped my face in her hands. We're going to fight this together. Something in her voice, her touch, cut through the chemical fog clouding my thoughts. For the first time in days, I could see clearly. Not just her face, but the magnitude of what we were up against. They're not just testing on me, are they? 200 people, Lucy. Restaurant workers, chefs, servers, all being drugged without their knowledge. The horror of it overwhelmed me. I started crying, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from somewhere I'd buried under layers of artificial compliance. Nicole held me while I broke apart, her fingers stroking my hair. We're going to stop them. How? I recorded everything. Their facility, their admissions, their test subjects. But I need proof of what they've done to you specifically. I nodded, wiping my eyes. The vials. I kept detailed logs like they asked. Perfect. We take everything to the FBI tomorrow. That night, we lay in my bed holding each other, both afraid to sleep. Nicole traced lazy patterns on my arm while I fought to stay present, to not drift back into the haze. I thought I was losing you, she whispered. You almost did. Promise me, no matter what happens next, you'll keep fighting to come back to me. I turned to face her, seeing love and determination shining in her eyes, even in the darkness. I promise. When I kissed her, it felt like sealing a pact, Not just between us, but between the person I used to be and who I was determined to become again. Nicole's exposé hit the internet like a tsunami at dawn. Within hours, her investigative piece was trending across every major news platform. Drug company uses chefs as unwitting test subjects screamed from headlines while her hidden camera footage played on loop across cable news channels. My phone rang non-stop. Reporters, lawyers, former customers wanting to know if they'd been poisoned. But Nicole had warned me to stay quiet until the FBI finished their initial investigation. "Let the evidence speak first," she'd said, her hand gripping mine as we watched the story explode online. By noon, federal agents descended on Meridian Research like avenging angels. I watched from my apartment window as they carried out boxes of files, computers, and those damned vials I'd been using to slowly poison myself. But Meridian wasn't going down without a fight. The first threat came disguised as a cease and desist letter, delivered by a courier who looked more like a bouncer than a messenger. Legal papers claiming Nicole had violated privacy laws, stolen proprietary information, committed corporate espionage. "They're trying to intimidate us," Nicole said, scanning the documents. "Standard corporate playbook." The second threat was less subtle. My restaurant's health permit was suddenly under review, my business license flagged for irregularities, and my insurance company mysteriously decided to conduct a random audit. "They want to destroy your livelihood," Nicole observed, pacing my apartment like a caged tiger. "Make you so desperate you'll recant everything." That evening, something inside my brain snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. The world tilted sideways, colors bleeding together in nauseating swirls. My body convulsed as months of accumulated chemicals wreaked havoc on my nervous system. Nicole found me on my bathroom floor, shaking uncontrollably. "Lucy, stay with me." The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and concerned voices. Emergency room doctors pumped my stomach, ran blood tests, tried to counteract compounds they'd never encountered before. "What exactly has she been taking?" Dr. Martinez asked Nicole, reading my chart with growing alarm. "Experimental neurochemicals. We don't know the full composition. Her brain activity is completely erratic. We're seeing signs of severe chemical poisoning, coupled with what looks like withdrawal symptoms." I drifted in and out of consciousness for hours, occasionally surfacing to find Nicole holding my hand, her face streaked with tears she refused to let fall completely. "Don't you dare leave me," she whispered during one of my lucid moments. "We have a story to finish." On the second day, Meridian's lawyers arrived at the hospital like vultures circling carrion. They tried to convince doctors that I was mentally unstable, that my allegations were fabricated, that I needed psychiatric evaluation rather than medical treatment. Nicole made sure they got nowhere near my room. "She's under federal protection," she informed them coldly. "Any further attempts at intimidation will be reported as witness tampering." While I fought for my sanity in a hospital bed, Nicole fought for justice in the media. She gave interviews to anyone who'd listen, sharing her investigation findings and demanding accountability. "They turned restaurant workers into unwitting drug tests," she told CNN. "Lucy Roberts is fighting for her life because she trusted the wrong people with the wrong motives." The public response was explosive. #JusticeForLucy started trending. Restaurant workers across the country demanded investigations into suspicious enhancement programs at their establishments. Legal experts called it the biggest human rights violation in corporate America. But the real breakthrough came when other victims started coming forward. Sarah from Atlanta, a pastry chef who'd been mysteriously forgetting basic recipes. Miguel from Chicago, whose personality had changed so dramatically his family staged an intervention. Dozens of restaurant workers, all participants in similar flavor enhancement programs, all experiencing identical symptoms. Dr. Martinez updated Nicole on my condition during her evening visit. "Her system is stabilizing, but the neurological damage may be permanent. Some memories might never return completely." Will she remember us, our relationship? That's harder to predict. Emotional memories seem more resilient than factual ones. That night, as I lay in the dimly lit hospital room, Nicole climbed carefully into the narrow bed beside me. Hospital policy be damned. "I was so scared I'd lost you," she whispered against my shoulder. "I'm still here." "Are you though? Really here?" I turned to face her, seeing fear and love warring in those blue eyes I'd fallen for. The drugs had stolen weeks of my life, made me a stranger to myself and everyone I cared about. I remember kissing you for the first time, I said softly, in my kitchen, after you tasted the gumbo. Relief flooded her expression. What else? The beach cleanup. How you looked in the firelight. The way you say my name when you're worried about me. I love you, she said simply. I love you too. We held each other in that narrow hospital bed, two women who'd stumbled into something bigger than romance, bigger than ourselves. Outside my window, New Orleans slept, unaware that tomorrow would bring more revelations, more battles. But for now, we had this moment of clarity, of connection, of stubborn hope that love could survive even corporate conspiracies designed to strip away everything that makes us human. My recovery took 3 weeks, but Nicole's investigation moved faster. Federal agents raided Meridian facilities in 12 cities simultaneously, uncovering a conspiracy that made international headlines. The scope was staggering. Hundreds of restaurant workers across the country all unknowingly participating in behavioral modification experiments. The grand jury's been assembled, FBI agent Rodriguez told us during his hospital visit. Your testimony will be crucial, Ms. Roberts. I clutched Nicole's hand tighter. Speaking publicly meant reliving every confused moment, every memory gap, every time I'd almost hurt someone because of what they'd done to me. She'll testify, Nicole answered for me. We both will. The media circus was overwhelming. Reporters camped outside the hospital, trying to catch footage of the chef who exposed corporate mind control. Celebrity lawyers offered to represent me pro bono, while pharmaceutical whistleblowers shared similar stories from other industries. But Nicole never left my side, fielding calls and protecting my privacy with fierce determination. You don't owe them anything, she said when I worried about disappointing supporters. Your job is to heal. The day before our court appearance, Dr. Harrison and Dr. Chen were arrested at the airport, trying to flee to Switzerland. Footage of them in handcuffs played on every news channel, their faces finally exposed to the world they'd tried to manipulate. How do you feel seeing them caught? A reporter asked Nicole outside the courthouse. Justice is just beginning, she replied. They destroyed lives for profit. Now they'll face consequences. Inside the federal courthouse, the atmosphere was electric. Victims filled the gallery while lawyers shuffled through mountains of evidence. Nicole had prepared meticulously, organizing every document, every recording, every piece of proof into an unshakable case. When my turn came to testify, I walked slowly to the witness stand, my legs still unsteady from weeks of chemical withdrawal. Nicole's encouraging smile from the gallery gave me strength. State your name for the record, the prosecutor said gently. Lucy Roberts, chef and owner of Magnolia's Kitchen. Miss Roberts, please tell the court how Meridian Research Solutions approached you. I recounted everything. The financial desperation, the too-good-to-be-true contract, the gradual realization that something was terribly wrong. The defense attorneys tried to paint me as an unreliable witness, citing my memory problems. Ms. Roberts, the defense lawyer said smugly, can you be certain your recollections are accurate given your admitted cognitive issues? I can be certain of this, I replied, looking directly at Dr. Harrison. You took away my ability to think clearly, to care for my customers safely, to be the person the woman I love fell for. That's not something you forget. The courtroom erupted in scattered applause before the judge restored order. Nicole's testimony was devastating. She methodically presented her investigation findings, the hidden camera footage, the documented proof of systematic human experimentation. Her voice never wavered, even when defense attorneys attacked her motives and methods. Why risk your career for this story? They asked. Because they were destroying the woman I love and 200 others like her. Some stories are worth any risk. During recess, we stood together in the courthouse hallway, exhausted but hopeful. You were amazing in there, I told her. We were amazing. This is our fight now. On the final day of testimony, victim after victim shared similar stories. Sarah from Atlanta broke down describing how she'd almost killed herself because she couldn't understand what was happening to her mind. Miguel from Chicago explained how his family had considered having him committed before learning about the drugs. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. The verdict sent shockwaves through corporate America. Dr. Harrison received 25 years for conspiracy, human experimentation, and fraud. Dr. Chen got 15 years. Meridian Research Solutions was dissolved, its assets liquidated to fund victim compensation. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us with questions about our plans, our relationship, our future. Nicole handled most of the attention, while I stood quietly beside her, still processing that it was finally over. "What's next for you both?" a journalist called out. Nicole looked at me, that familiar sparkle returning to her blue eyes. "We're going home to rebuild." That evening, we sat on my apartment balcony overlooking the French Quarter, sharing a bottle of wine, and watching tourists stumble through the streets below. The ordeal had aged us both, but somehow we'd emerged stronger. "I keep thinking about that first night," Nicole said. "When you kissed me in your kitchen. Best decision I ever made. Even considering everything that happened after?" I thought about it seriously. The drugs, the fear, the weeks of confusion, all of it had been horrific. But it had also brought us together, forged something unbreakable between us. Especially considering everything that happened after. Nicole curled against my side, her head fitting perfectly on my shoulder. "So what do we do now?" "Now we live, we cook, we love each other." "In that order?" "In whatever order feels right." The city hummed around us, full of music and laughter and possibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight was ours. The Victim Compensation Fund transformed our lives in ways we never imagined. 6 months after the trial, I stood in the shell of what would become our new restaurant, watching construction crews install state-of-the-art kitchen equipment that I'd only dreamed about before. "The exhaust system goes there," I told the contractor, pointing to the ceiling. "And we need extra ventilation over the seafood station." Nicole emerged from the dining room carrying paint samples. "What do you think about sage green for the walls? It matches your sustainability theme." "Perfect." She kissed my cheek, leaving a faint lipstick mark I didn't bother wiping away. 6 months ago, I could barely remember her name. Now I couldn't imagine making any decision without her input. "Channel 7 wants to interview us next week," Nicole said. "About the restaurant opening." I groaned. Media attention still made me nervous, even though public support had been overwhelming. Letters poured in from around the country, praising our courage and wishing us success. "We don't have to if you're not ready." "No, it's fine. People deserve to see how this story ends." The truth was, my recovery had been remarkable. Dr. Martinez called it a miracle that I'd regained most of my cognitive function, though some memories remained permanently hazy. I'd learned to live with the gaps, focusing on building new experiences, rather than mourning lost ones. Our restaurant, Coastline, opened on a humid Thursday evening in late summer. The dining room was packed with supporters, journalists, fellow victims, and curious locals eager to taste what two women could build from the ashes of corporate conspiracy. I'd designed a menu that honored both my grandmother's traditions and my newfound commitment to sustainability. Every ingredient came from within 100 miles. Every dish told the story of Louisiana's coast. "First order's ready," I called from the kitchen, sliding plates across the pass. Nicole handled front-of-house operations with natural grace, charming customers while managing reservations and coordinating with servers. Watching her work, I marveled at how perfectly our skills complemented each other. The New Orleans Times-Picayune food critic arrived during the dinner rush. I recognized her immediately from Nicole's description and felt my stomach clench with familiar anxiety. "She's ordering the tasting menu," Nicole whispered during a brief kitchen visit. "All of it?" "All of it." I threw myself into each dish with passionate precision. The gumbo that had started everything, elevated with techniques I'd learned during recovery. Gulf shrimp prepared 3 ways, showcasing different local fishing communities. A dessert inspired by my grandmother's bread pudding, but made with sustainable chocolate and locally sourced cream. 2 hours later, the critic left without speaking to us. Nicole and I exchanged worried glances. "Either very good or very bad," she said. The review ran 3 days later. Coastline represents everything a modern restaurant should be: conscious, creative, and completely authentic. Roberts and Clark have created something special from something terrible, proving that the best revenge is living extraordinarily well. 5 stars. That weekend, we closed the restaurant early and drove to Grand Isle, returning to the beach where we'd first kissed. The sunset painted the Gulf in shades of amber and rose, while seabirds called overhead. "I keep thinking about that night," Nicole said, settling beside me on our old piece of driftwood. "Which night?" "The hospital. When you remembered kissing me for the first time." "What about it?" "I realized that's when I knew we'd be okay." No matter what they'd taken from you, they couldn't take us. I turned to study her profile in the golden light. You never gave up on me. How could I? You were worth fighting for. The beach was empty except for us and a few dedicated fishermen casting lines into the surf. We sat in comfortable silence, watching dolphins breach in the distance. Nicole? Yeah? Thank you. For what? Everything. The investigation, the trial, staying with me through the worst of it, building something beautiful with me after. She smiled, that devastating smile that had captured my heart in a crowded restaurant months ago. Thank you for being worth saving. When we kissed, it tasted like salt air and possibility. The kind of kiss that seals promises, that marks new beginnings, that says everything words can't quite capture. Later, walking hand in hand along the waterline, Nicole stopped suddenly. What? I asked. I love you, Lucy Roberts. I love you too, Nicole Clark. Even after everything we've been through? Especially after everything we've been through. The waves whispered against the shore while overhead, stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new customers, new adventures. But tonight belonged to us. Two women who'd survived corporate conspiracy, media scrutiny, and their own fears to build something lasting. Ready to head home? Nicole asked. I looked around at the beach that had witnessed our first real moment together, then at the woman who'd become my partner in every sense of the word. Yeah, let's go home. 6 months later, Coastline had become the crown jewel of New Orleans' dining scene. Food Network wanted to feature us in a documentary, and reservations were booked solid through Christmas. Nicole's investigative work had won her a Pulitzer nomination, while my sustainable cooking philosophy was being taught in culinary schools nationwide. But success couldn't compare to what happened on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was prepping vegetables for lunch service when Nicole burst through the kitchen doors, her face flushed with excitement and something else I couldn't identify. Lucy, we need to talk. Can it wait? The lunch rush starts in an hour. No, it can't wait. She grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the office we shared behind the dining room. Sit down. My heart started racing. In my experience, conversations that began with, sit down, never brought good news. You're scaring me, I said. Nicole dropped to one knee. My breath caught in my throat. We'd talked about marriage in abstract terms, someday scenarios that felt safely distant. But here she was, in our restaurant office surrounded by invoices and inventory lists, holding a small velvet box. Lucy Roberts, she began, her voice trembling slightly. You are the most infuriating, brilliant, courageous woman I've ever met. Nicole, let me finish. You survived something that would have destroyed most people. You rebuilt your life, your restaurant, your dreams. You made me believe in love again when I'd given up hope. Tears blurred my vision. Through the office window, I could see our staff setting up for lunch service in the dining room where we'd first met as strangers. I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I want to build a business empire with you. Fight corporate corruption together, maybe even adopt some kids who need what we have. Kids? I laughed through my tears. 2 kids, maybe 3. We'll teach them to cook and fight injustice, and love fearlessly. She opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring that caught the afternoon light streaming through our window. Will you marry me? The question hung between us like a bridge waiting to be crossed. I thought about everything we'd survived together, the investigation, the drugs, the trial, the rebuilding. We'd been tested in ways most couples never face and emerged stronger. Yes, I whispered. Yes? Yes, you crazy, beautiful, impossible woman. Yes to everything. Nicole slipped the ring onto my finger with shaking hands, then stood to kiss me properly. It tasted like tears and promises and the gumbo I'd been seasoning all morning. There's one more thing, she said against my lips. More? She reached into her jacket and pulled out a newspaper clipping. The Times-Picayune wants to hire me as their food and environmental correspondent. Full-time position, investigative budget, complete editorial freedom. Nicole, that's incredible. It means I'd stay in New Orleans permanently. No more traveling for stories, no more long-distance assignments. You'd give up national journalism for local reporting? I'd give up everything for you. We were interrupted by a knock on the office door. Chef Lucy? our sous chef peeked in. "The first customers are arriving. Be right there." I looked at my new fiancé, still processing the magnitude of what had just happened. "Ready to cook lunch for 100 people? Ready to do anything with you." We returned to the kitchen together, and I threw myself into the familiar rhythm of professional cooking. But every few minutes, I'd catch Nicole's eye across the dining room and remember the weight of the ring on my finger. That evening, after the last customer had left and the staff had gone home, we sat at table 12, the same table where Nicole had first reviewed my food, where our story had really begun. "I have a confession," I said, refilling our wine glasses. "What kind of confession?" "I've been carrying around a ring for 3 weeks, trying to figure out the perfect moment to propose." Nicole's mouth fell open. "You were going to propose to me?" Great minds think alike, apparently. "Where's the ring?" I produced a small box from my apron pocket. Inside was a simple gold band engraved with tiny waves, representing the beach where we'd first kissed. "Lucy Roberts, will you marry me?" Nicole asked, grinning. I already said yes, remember? Say it again. Yes. We exchanged rings there in our empty restaurant, surrounded by the ghosts of every meal we'd served, every crisis we'd weathered, every moment that had brought us to this point. Outside, New Orleans hummed with its eternal music, but inside Coastline, the only sound was our laughter echoing off the walls we'd built together. Two women who'd found each other in the chaos of corporate conspiracy, who'd survived mind control and media scrutiny and their own fears to create something beautiful. "So," Nicole said, admiring both rings on her finger, "what do we do for an encore?" "We live happily ever after." That simple? That complicated. And as we locked up our restaurant and walked home through the French Quarter hand in hand, I realized that sometimes the best stories don't end. They just transform into new beginnings. This story explores how even in darkness, love and truth can illuminate the path forward. Lucy and Nicole's journey reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Embrace your inner strength, stand for what's right, and never stop fighting for what truly matters. Discover more captivating stories daily by subscribing to my YouTube channel, new content uploaded every single day.